Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. And today we have a very special guest with us. In fact, our first guest ever from Australia down under. He is the chairman of the Asian Cricket Sixes Tour, and he's also a lifetime member of the Perth Postals and CBB Cricket Club. I have with me over here Michael Maher, aka Cat, and today we'll be talking about Australia's 15-man squad for the World T20, whether or not they stand a chance to win the whole thing, and we'll also touch a bit about the Asian Cricket Sixes Tour on this volume of
CRIQAZI Diaries.
Have a look at that, smiles up, oh, it's nearly taken someone out the stands. That was a flat six right under the stand there, the George Giffen stand, up into the members, and it went like a rocket.
Welcome to the show, Kat. First of all, thank you for sparing the time to make it to the show. It is my extreme pleasure to have an Australian on the show for the first time. How are you doing?
I'm well, thank you. A few hours different than you, so it's AM here. I've had a little bit of a frog in the throat the last few days, so excuse my croakiness. But overall, very good in lovely Perth.
Lovely, lovely. And yeah, let's get right into it. I want to talk about the 15-man Australian squad. Of course, we have seen a lot of the big boys come back for this. Aaron Finch, Davey Warner, Stephen Smith, Glenn Maxwell. Then, of course, you have Pat Cummins, Mitchell Starc, and Josh Hazlewood. But we'll talk about the key players in a bit. What I want to talk to you about first is that they've picked two wicketkeeper batsmen. They've got Josh Inglis, who has a fantastic record in T20 cricket. He has an average of 32, a strike rate of over 150, 2 centuries and 11 half centuries. So those numbers are insane. And then, of course, you have the experienced Matthew Wade. And now my question to you is, are you satisfied for these selections as wicketkeeper, or do you feel that there was room for Alex Carey, who has performed in Asian conditions prior to this?
Personally, as a personal note, I picked Josh Inglis last season. Mm-hmm. He's been a consistent performer for 2 or 3 years. He had a standout season in the UK. He was actually born in England. He was born in Yorkshire area, and he plays for my state here, Western Australia, and we've had the pleasure of watching him play for a number of years. I'm not surprised one little bit that he's been selected. I would have liked to have seen him selected much earlier. Mm-hmm. And I'm quite surprised that he hasn't played an international game yet. He excels at all formats of cricket. He plays good, solid. He's got a good technique, plays solid Sheffield Shield cricket. He plays good one-day cricket. But of course, the format that he's excelled at is T20, as well as the 100 in England recently, where he also excelled with a 50 and played very well. So I personally am very happy with that selection. Back to your specific question, Alex Carey or Matthew Wade. Personally, I believe they've given Wade way too many chances. I think after he failed in the series against India in Test cricket last year, sure, the formats are much different, but I think he's given a long time of service to Australian cricket, and I think it was about time to move him on for the younger players. And I think Alex Carey is harshly done by recently, especially at home here, where he's having a run of form, where he's scoring a few runs here in Australia. It's a sign that he should be in that squad, and he should have been in the first 11, in my opinion. And I think it's a hole in the side. I think they're going to be picking Wade for the side to start with. I personally, with the squad we currently got, I would go straight in with Inglis at the start. But I doubt if they'll do that.
I happen to agree with you over there because Alex Carey, he has performed in India before, and Matthew Wade, like you said, one opportunity too many. He was leading the side against Bangladesh and he failed quite miserably. Australia also lost 4-1 in that series. But anyway, we have consensus over there. I do also think that Alex Carey should have made the cut ahead of Matthew Wade. One more selection query that I have from you is that Australia have picked Kane Richardson as their fourth seamer. Now, if you ask me, I would have personally gone with Nathan Coulter-Nile. Given that he plays the IPL year in, year out, he's actually done well this year for the Mumbai Indians. I think he got a 4-for in one of the games on the same pitches where the UAE World Cup will be held. So do you think that maybe he was hard done by as well? And what do you make of Kane Richardson?
It just seems that our seamers Western Australia miss out. Jai Richardson, Ty, Berendorf, and Coulter Nile, all from this side of the country, the four of them missed out. I'm really not sure why. Kane Richardson is a handy bowler, but I think he goes for way too many runs, as from time to time the other three have. Whereas Coulter Nile, over a long period of time, has shown he's a good, solid performer in T20 cricket, particularly in the IPL, as you mentioned, and also comes in as a very handy batter.
Oh, yes.
If the ball's moving around a bit early in the innings, in the first 10 overs, and you're in trouble and 4 or 5 wickets fall, he's a handy number 8 to come in, number 7 or 8 to come in, and he's proven in the past to hit fast runs.
I believe he did it against the West Indies in the Cricket World Cup in 2019, if I'm not wrong.
Correct. And I just, unless he's got under an injury cloud, which I would be surprised because he's been playing IPL and other forms, I'm not really sure why he hasn't been selected. And he's a much more proven and I think a much better player than Kane Richardson.
I agree. 100%. I do believe that both are seasoned professionals, but I think Coulter Nile does have that edge over Kane Richardson, especially the fact that he can hit the ball a long way and can prove to be that man in a crisis. He's done that for Australia before. He could have done that for them again. And the other names you took, of course, Berendorf. He performed really well in the 2019 World Cup. I think that game against England, he did really, really well. And then Jai Richardson is such an exciting talent. Shades of Dale Steyn over there, I'd say. And I think they even work together. So, yeah, I would agree those guys are a little hard done by. They should have made the cut at least ahead of Kane Richardson. And I do feel that the fourth seamer, Australia, have went with a bit of a suspect choice. But let's move on to the key players. Now, of course, this is the return of Maxwell, Smith, Davey Warner and Aaron Finch to the team. They haven't featured for Australia for a while. But Aaron Finch, he hasn't been the most impressive batsman in Asian conditions. Davey Warner is on a horrid run of form. He even got dropped by his team Sunrisers Hyderabad in the IPL after scoring a duck and 2. And then Steve Smith, you'd think that he's one of the best players in the world and arguably the best player in Test cricket, in modern day cricket. But T20s, he hasn't quite shown with the bat recently. Of course, he also got dropped by Delhi Capitals in the IPL. I think that the main man for Australia with the bat over here is Glenn Maxwell. He was fantastic for RCB and he has such a high strike rate. He's very, very consistent in T20 cricket, handy off spinner as well. So I think he could be that key player who could win games for Australia. And then also I feel like Josh Hazlewood is a bowler who's been doing well. Of course, Stark and Cummins are amazing, but they haven't had that game time under their belt. So I think that Hazel would be that go-to man as far as seam bowlers are concerned. And then of course, Zampa and Aga are decent, but time will tell if they have it to deliver in the UAE. What's your take?
Right. Well, you've covered quite a lot there, the whole side. Pretty much. We already chatted about the keeper, so we've gone about batsmen and bowlers and spinners, medium pacers and spinners. Well, let's just talk about the batting first. We're a huge question mark. You're right. There is three very suspect players there: Aaron Finch, Dave Warner, Stephen Smith in 2020 cricket. I believe both. Well, I think Finch a little bit like Wade, and I think it's pretty typical of our selectors in recent years. We've hung on too long, and I feel as though that's what we've done here. Within mind that also Aaron Finch has been out for quite a few months with injury, and he's not proven at all at the moment. He hasn't played a game. He's just come straight off injury, and he'll probably go out in the first match next week and play and open the batting for Australia. And I find that awfully strange. I think he was injured. He should not be in that test squad. He should not be in that T20 squad. And it's a huge question mark. With in mind that he's got a lot of talent, he's played a lot of fantastic innings in his life, in his career, and he's likely to come out swinging and do well. If he has some luck and that happens, we all know he's capable of that. So la vie, it will be great for the side and for Australia. But I think there's a lot of ifs involved there, and I think this is a huge risk. playing Aaron Finch, with in mind that he's also the captain. And I also at times question his captaincy in T20 cricket. So I think he's the biggest key in our batting lineup for Australia. As the captain and opener, it's a huge issue. Now, Dave Warner, world cricket-wise, IPL obviously is the biggest 2020 comp in the world. It's very clear he failed in the IPL this year. Now, last year he did everything right. He kept smiling at the owners and he did the right thing, played the game and was re-contracted. But this year he has struggled badly. I believe he's a touch player. He's an eye player. He should play with his eye. And he just hasn't been doing that. He's played the build-up Australian way, which is the way Australia had so much success in one-day cricket for so long, and is what Australia does with their young players. Warner needs to go out and play his natural game. Unless he plays his natural game and finds some touch, he'll also, like Finch, struggle. Now, you cannot go into a World Cup with your two openers struggling and not taking advantage of the first 6 overs. So that in itself, those two players, to me, are crucial for Australia. If they fail, our chances of winning this thing may be out the door. Now, onto the rest of the batting lineup, 3, 4, and 5. I feel that the little cushion that could come in for Smith, because especially with Finch and Warner, 1 and 2, the last thing needed is, if a wicket falls, is for Smith to come in, because he fiddles around a bit too much early. He needs to come in when the ball's not moving around very much and play shots from the first ball. So my pick, I would like to see the form player on the recent tours to the West Indies and to Bangladesh. The one guy that stood out in the whole tour and is a big guy, is an all-rounder. I would like to see him batting at 3 like he did on that tour, is Mitchell Marsh. Now, I think he is the standout player at the moment, 2020 in Australia. He has had a mixed past. The big boys from the East like to criticise Mitch Marsh, and quite rightly, because he hasn't been as consistent as he should have been in the past. But on the tour, the recent tour, I think he only had 2 failures with the bat the whole tour, and he was standout. And he was batting further up the list rather than coming in at 6 or 7 like he has his whole career. He was coming in earlier, the ball was coming onto the bat, and if he plays his natural game, he's a match winner. So I would tip him for number 3 to take the pressure off Smith a little bit. Now, we all know how good a player Smith is. He is an amazing player. And if he gets his game going again, he's a match winner. But he needs to play his natural game. If he doesn't, he'll fail. Because if he starts thinking too much, he gets himself in a tiz. So another question mark. And of course, a little bit like Mitch Marsh, you're right, Glenn Maxwell. He needs to be a part of the game. He's had a fantastic season in the IPL. He was consistent the whole IPL. And yes, you're right. He's the X factor. But I believe he's the X factor along with Mitch Marsh in the Australian team. And for Australia to win the World Cup, it's usually bowlers that win a World Cup. But I think this year for Australia, staying with a lot of the older players and their top 5 the way there is, and the way the squad is set up where there's not a lot of backup, I really truly believe there's not a lot of backup there for these bats, that these 5 have to perform for Australia to win the World Cup. So on to the seamers. I do agree. It's pretty clear who the 3 seamers will be, whether they play every game. Obviously, some wickets in the UAE take a lot more turn, where you're right, Swepson might come in and they might play three spinners and an all-rounder. They could even play a second all-rounder and bring Stoinis in. who has been a great player for a long time, but whether he's up for it, he's just been injured as well. But with the first 11, which you'd expect Australia to go into, we've got Cummins, Hazelwood, and Stark.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Hazelwood, I believe, has had a fantastic IPL. Now, he's a bit of a Glenn McGrath type player.
Mm-hmm.
He's on the spot. He can, but the difference is he has built his pace up. He started dropping back to 130s, low 130s. Now he bowls at the high 130s, and he's on the spot. I think he's our most consistent performer, and he's the seamer that's going to keep the ball there for 4 overs. And he's a great player. I think he'll do the job, as will Cummins.
Mm-hmm.
Now Cummins has had a bit of a break, but he's the happiest man on earth. There's a video floating around at the moment where he and his wife have just had a child. It's a wonderful little video. It goes for about a minute and a half, and it shows her. She told him she was pregnant, and during the pregnancy and the birth of their child. He's such a proud guy. He's such a nice guy, but he's such a good player. And I believe he'll be over the moon. He'll be enthusiastic. I just hope it doesn't create him being too enthusiastic. But I believe he'll play a great World Cup. But for me, if we have a risk, a little bit like Finch, Warner and Smith, if we've got an area that could be of weakness, and especially that the backup is Kane Richardson, is Mitchell Stark. Now, Mitchell Stark was pretty much the world's best left-arm bowler 3 years ago in all formats. And we all know what ability he has. But in the recent last 2 years, he's almost at times been going through the rhythm, just going through and bowling balls without effort balls. I don't know whether it's because he's getting old, whether he's slowing down, or whether he's not bowling enough. He's a bowler that's got to bowl. I'm quite concerned that he hasn't bowled enough leading up to this World Cup. And if he's not on song, he's everywhere. And these guys from the other countries in the World Cup, anything too short, too full, not online, they go for 4s and 6. And I think he's the guy that could go for a lot of runs unless he's really on song. But with that, on the other side of things, he's also a match winner. If he takes those 2 early wickets, if the ball's moving a bit and he gets that Yorker in, or he pushes the one across to the slip or the keeper, pick up 2 wickets, the game changes immediately. That's also is a strike bowler. So that's the question mark on the seamers.
Yeah, well, that was some fantastic insight by you, Kat. And I do agree with you over there. You know, batsmen can win you games, but bowlers will win you tournaments. And the onus is definitely on Mitchell Stark, who's had quite an average couple of years. Of course, Josh Hazlewood is leading that attack. And then Pat Cummins, first of all, congratulations to him on the birth of his child. And of course, he is a world-class bowler, so and can hit the ball as well. Quite decent with the bat. No mug with the bat for sure. And then you've got Zampa and Agar, who are decent with the spin, and Swepson in the reserves. And you might play 3 spinners. You never know. And I think that would be quite a brave decision and could prove to be fruitful. But yes, also, if Stephen Smith and Davey Warner, if they can have a good World Cup, if they can really show their batting prowess, then I think Australia all of a sudden are right up there with the contenders. Just a quick question with you over there, Kat. You mentioned something about the selectors being a little off with their selections. Just quickly, what do you make of George Bailey over Trevor Horns as the selector?
Now George Bailey seems, I've never had the honour of meeting George Bailey, but I've obviously observed his cricket. He seems to be a very insular fellow, and he's quite knowledgeable from everything I say, everything I've heard. But I believe he has not long retired from the game. Mm-hmm. He was never quite confident enough to be an absolute leading international player, which various people tipped him to be. He possibly was an underachiever in a lot of ways. But, hey, I'm not going to take anything away from him. The ability he had a good career, a very good career. But I just feel by appointing him in the role he's got as a chairman is too close to his playing days. I think he's way too close to the likes of Finch, Warner, Smith, Stark, Hazelwood, Cummins, and Wade, of course, and even Maxwell. I think he's way too close to these guys. And I know there's a selection panel and I know everything else, but I really don't know whether he would be able to independently make selections without the pressure of friendships, etc. I know I'm maybe suggesting that he's not being professional enough here. That could be the case, but I really believe they could have, with the amount of cricket talent from former players around the country, there's a lot of great minds out there getting in IPL contracts and being coaches. They're all over the world, Tom Moody and the likes. I know they might not be available, but there's a lot of guys, Ricky Ponting, they're everywhere. And I would have thought, as chairman of selectors, George Bailey, maybe in 5 years, but not now. And I think that is reflected in the selections in this World Cup squad.
Fair enough. Point taken. Next up, Kat, I'd like to talk about Australia's chances at making the semi-finals in this World T20. Of course, this is that one tournament in world cricket that has eluded Australia. They've never won the World T20, and they've been test number one. They've won the 50-over World Cup. They won the Champions Trophy. So this is that black sheep over there. And coming into this World Cup, they've not had a lot of game time as a unit. Of course, they did tour West Indies and Bangladesh. They lost 4-1, albeit with depleted sides, but you didn't expect them to lose 4-1 in both series. 8 games lost in 10. You just simply don't expect that sort of a performance from Australia. And then, those were spin-friendly conditions, very similar to what you're going to get in the UAE. And also the fact that this is a shocking statistic, I can't believe I'm saying this, but Australia have actually lost their last 5 T20 international series. So what do you make of the squad? Do you think they'll be able to perform in UAE conditions? And do you think they stand a chance to make the semis in a group that consists West Indies, who are 2-time champions and have got a belligerent batting lineup, and then also England, who are arguably one of the best white ball teams in the world?
Well, I think they've drawn the tough group in the World Cup, which makes it harder to make the semi-finals. I think a lot of those things we've been discussing are the question marks. But I think you alluded to one thing there that we haven't really gone into detail about, which could be the difference here, is the spinners.
Right.
You mentioned the 3 spinners. There's Agar, Zampa, and of course, Swepson. Now, the reasons I believe we lost those, now sure, West Indies isn't usually necessarily a ultra spin friendly place, but they tended to be on a few spinning pitches there in the West Indies when they were there. And the wickets in Bangladesh were diabolical. I wouldn't compare them to the wickets that are going to be in the UAE. I could be wrong. I've got a lot of friends in Bangladesh, and they've been inviting me over for years, and I'm yearning to go to that country, and some great friends there. But I believe those wickets they were playing on were diabolical with the spin. And it happened again in a couple of months later when New Zealand went there recently, where there was some turners, and it was just going sideways. And but within in that subject, we can pick spinners as well. Now, our spinners probably don't spin the ball as much as the subcontinent sides do. They're different type of bowlers. So then you go, well, Zampa isn't a big spinner of the ball. He is proven he bowls the ball flat on the spot. He's a big risk, but he can be a match winner. Whether that will work in the UAE, I'm not sure. But Ashton Agar, I call him an all-rounder because he's a very handy bat. I have him batting number 7 in the starting 11. And he actually, and I haven't checked up on this for a while, but I believe he was number 1 spinner in T20 cricket for a while, in world cricket, in international cricket. Now, I think he's quite underrated in some ways as a spinner. Again, like Of course, he's left arm orthodox, but like Zampa, he doesn't turn the ball a long way.
Mm-hmm.
He has been pushed into being a specialist T20 player over a number of years. We all remember the 96 or whatever it was he made at Lord's many years ago for Australia, batting at number 11, I think it was.
With that lovely hair.
he can hit the ball well, and he's a handy guy coming in at number 7.
Mm-hmm.
But he's a great fielder. But I think he will be a key. Now, Swepson is a guy that's had a lot of form over a number of years for Australia. He probably deserves his spot, but he tends to spin the ball a bit more than Zampa.
Mm-hmm.
I think it could be a possibility as the tournament goes, if Australia are able to continue in the tournament, that he could either come in the side as the third spinner or even possibly replace Zampa at some point. You never know. He might even start instead of Zampa. I doubt it. But he for me, has a lot more of a proven record than Zampa has. Zampa has on the international stage, though.
Mm-hmm.
So he's had hidden success. So that could be the difference for Australia making the semi-finals, I think. With all those other risks that we're talking about with the keeper, the batting, the bowl, the seamers. With all those risks, unless you've got a proven spin attack who can maintain and take wickets, it's no good for all the other things in the UAE especially.
Fair enough, and you brought up a lot of good points about those spinners. Of course, Ashton Agar is a really wonderful talent. He hasn't quite gotten to those heights that I expected him to, but he's a good wicket-to-wicket bowler, and he can hit the ball pretty well as well. And then I do rate Swepson over Zampa. To your point, he spins the ball a bit more. But then again, Adam Zampa has been so successful in international cricket. In fact, he has a knack of getting Virat Kohli out every time. So, he does... He has done well for Australia. And if those three spinners, I believe you could play them in tandem in the same game. In fact, we'll get to the first 11s in a bit. But yeah, if Australia are to be successful, I feel like these three spinners, a lot rides on them. And the first match of Australia is against South Africa, who are a team which are not doing too well themselves. So I feel like whoever wins that game in particular puts themselves on a better platform progressing deep into the tournament because England and West Indies are top quality sides. So I think a lot hinges on that first game. And Australia, even though I don't quite have them for the semis, they are still Australia. And we all know about Australian mentality, never say die. And if they bring their A game, not only will they make the semis, they'll become contenders to win the whole thing. That's just my opinion. So let's get to the first 11 then. Kat, I'll give you my first 11 first, and then you can tell me what you would change or how you would go about things differently. Finch, Warner, Inglis, Maxwell, Smith, and Mitchell Marsh, they can all rotate. And then the five bowlers you've got left, you've got three pacers and Mitchell Starc, Josh Hazlewood, and Pat Cummins. And then you'd go with Ashton Agar and one of Mitchell Swepson or Adam Zampa. Or if they want to be a bit brave, go with both leggies. A lot of teams are successful doing that.
Okay, so you have Inglis playing instead of Wade, and obviously batting Inglis at 3, which I don't disagree with. I agree with. If Inglis was playing, I agree with you totally. And I think in a way what you're saying is you're protecting Smith a little bit more than I was even suggesting. Yeah. And I agree with that. I think it's brave. I don't think that this will happen. I hope you're right, but I don't think this will happen. And in effect, you're talking about a side that if you ask me for a side I think should play, I would go close to that.
Okay.
I don't necessarily think the selectors will do that. I think they'll go safe and they'll probably play Wade and blah, 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 blah. I think that takes the pressure off Marsh, Smith and Maxwell somewhat because you can, if we go well early, you can swing Maxwell in earlier. Smith can be protected to a certain extent because the type of player he is, you don't, you can play around a bit with the order and throw Maxwell in earlier. Marsh has to, no matter what he does, play his natural game. And that's what he's been doing for the first time in his career. I wouldn't mess with him. 4's ideal for him if you play English. So I agree. If we want to make a semi-final in the World Cup, there's got to be a couple of big calls there. And if that is, look, the leg spinners are going to turn the ball a bit more, play the both of them, don't play Agar, so be it, because you're playing Inglis instead of Agar. But I would still play the same 2 old spinners probably, or one of the leg spinners, and play Agar and the 3 seamers. So whether they're going to be brave and listen to us, I don't think so. I think they'll be conservative, and I think that might be the problem of Australia in the World Cup. But having South Africa first, if we can roll them, confidence is a big thing.
Momentum is huge. You're right over there. And you talked about them being conservative. Well, Justin Langer has been under the pump a lot recently, so maybe they are a bit conservative. But yeah, I'd like to see that 2-leg spinner plus Maxwell combination as far as spin bowling is concerned. Of course, I've just rethought this now, and I guess I'm going to leave Agar on the bench, unfortunately, go with the 3 pacers, Swepson and Zampa, and then that's the top 6 that I spoke of earlier. Before I end this interview, Kat, of course, I'd like to talk a little bit about the ACST, the Asian Cricket Sixes Tour. Of course, you are the chairman, and it has gone to a halt because of COVID. So what are your plans with the ACST in the future, and how's it going to come along?
Yeah, it's been a tough time for the world, hasn't it? We haven't been able to see each other. The Asian Cricket Sixes Tour, we are all about friendship through cricket. We bring people together of all creeds, of all nationalities. We're all friends. We're all there for the love of the game, the beautiful game of cricket. We've been fortunate since 2002 to hold 54 tournaments in various parts of the world with a lot of success. And all you got to do is go look at people in Facebook and see their friend list and the amount of friends in common that they've met through our cricket tournaments. They've become lifelong friends, and they all miss each other. Now, I know recently you interviewed Saurav Chatterjee from Calcutta. He's one of our great friends. He was a partner in the ACST at one point, and he's still very fond of us and works with us a lot. And he's a guy we've missed a lot, along with a whole lot of other people. And so we want to get this going again. The world is opening up a little bit faster in North America and Europe, of course. Asia is a lot slower. The pandemic is still around. We're very fortunate here in Perth. We're living in a little bit of a barriered state, but we're free of COVID. We're very fortunate there. But we got to move on. So I'm very keen. I'm confident we can run a tournament in November next year, which is more than 12 months away. We run the Siam Sevens in Chiang Mai, Thailand. Very confident we'll be able to run that in 13 months' time. I'm sure we'll have a huge lineup of teams. We've got teams from all over the world very anxious to tour. So we're coming back. We're going to come into it very positively. We're going to take advantage of this break we've had, and we're going to be very, very enthusiastic to start it again, to get the exciting tournaments happy again. They're parties, they're festivals of cricket, and we just want to make people happy and purely go the friendship for cricket element. And here's this, fingers crossed for the future.
Yeah, well, of course, I wish you the very best with the resumption of the ACST. And of course, my brother, he has toured on the Phuket tour, I believe, quite a few times. And in fact, they won the first time they went. And that's how we are speaking today. So I hope that the ACST resumes as early as possible and everyone is allowed to go out there and play cricket, enjoy themselves. That's a wrap for Volume 52, though. Thank you so much, Kat, for coming on the show. It was an absolute pleasure to have you.
I've really enjoyed the chat. I do remember you as a young fellow coming to Phuket one year, sitting in the stands, big smile on your face. You understand what we're talking about. Your brother Haroon has been a great friend for many, many years, a true gentleman, as the whole side was. And we miss them, and I'm sure they'll be back for the first Phuket, which we will be holding as soon as we possibly can. And but he might want a bit of a change of scenery and come up to Chiang Mai. So all the best to Haroon, and great to speak with you. And hopefully I am hoping for Australia's sake that we will, a few of these question marks will come true, and now some of our thoughts come true, and we can have a good World Cup. And like you, if we're good enough to make a semi-final, I think we're good enough to win the World Cup.
Absolutely. And you can never really write Australia off, regardless of what sort of form they're in, because they have such a rich cricketing history and they've been champions so many times in the past. And that's a wrap, folks. If you enjoyed this episode, do like, share, and subscribe. And don't forget to hit that bell icon in order to be notified about my latest videos. I'll see you soon with the T20 World Cup coming up. I'll be posting videos quite regularly. So I'll see you when I see you. That's all for now. Kazi off the mic.
Have a look at that, Smiles up, oh, it's nearly taken someone out of the stands. That was a flat six right under the stand there, the George Giffen stand, up into the members, and it went like a